Margaret Thompson, 69, lived her life according to steadfast Midwestern principles, cultivated over decades in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Her cherished Maple Street home, a 4-decade refuge, stood as a museum of family memories, and her years nurturing children as an elementary school teacher alongside her central role as the family's emotional core. Her husband Frank, 72, a quietly supportive retired auto mechanic, often retreated to the solace of his workshop. Their daughter Sarah, a 42-year-old divorced nurse living hours away in Des Moines with teenage twins, frequently wrestled with feelings of guilt about the physical distance separating them. Son Michael, 39, a successful local insurance agent, managed the constant strain of juggling career demands with family life alongside his wife Jennifer and their 2 young daughters. Bound tightly by affection and Margaret's unshakable conviction in the primacy of family, their existence felt deeply rooted and unremarkable. Margaret viewed herself as resilient, having navigated numerous challenges life presented. This characteristic, combined with practical habits and concerns about medical expenses, led her to dismiss the initial ache in her right ear during a sermon 3 weeks prior, attributing it simply to troublesome earwax. Yet the sensation, a persistent throb akin to trapped water, was undeniably peculiar. By the following week, her hearing noticeably deteriorated, forcing adjustments like increasing television volume and contact lenses, and frequently requesting repetitions, actions that quietly troubled Frank. Within another week, the simple discomfort transformed into intensely sharp episodes. What were dull aches erupted suddenly into violent knifing pains during everyday activities, leaving Margaret breathless. Rest became impossible as agony, unsteadiness on her feet, and disturbing phantom noises piercing the quiet of her old house relentlessly disrupted sleep. A pivotal moment arrived later during a bustling family dinner at Michael's home. Immersed in the chaotic warmth, Margaret remained unaware of her granddaughter Grace standing beside her. Concentrating fiercely to respond triggered such excruciating pain that tears sprang to her eyes, while Grace's repeated unheard, "I love you, Grandma," made starkly clear Margaret's fear that her condition threatened her cherished role as grandmother. That very night, while Frank assisted her prepare for bed, Margaret finally acknowledged something was profoundly wrong. Frank, his own worry amplified by 47 years of shared life, instantly decided to contact their longtime physician, Dr. Harrison, first thing in the morning. They entered the familiar, unchanged clinic on a cold Iowa February dawn, their anxiety palpable, even after weathering previous health concerns. Nurse Nancy Williams, a comforting figure through many years, guided them to the exam room. Dr. Harrison, a reliable friend who had treated the family for decades, brought his customary calming presence. After warm greetings, he asked Margaret to recount her ordeal: the original ache, the escalating loss of hearing, the strange sounds invading the silence, and the intense, incapacitating, stabbing pains that had ultimately broken through her stoic resolve. Following a standard examination of Margaret's ear, Dr. Harrison's demeanor shifted abruptly. He began unnaturally stilling cases of pain and drew a quick, sharp breath, signaling an unexpected discovery. Offering no immediate explanation, he hurried from the room to urgently summon ENT specialist Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Both physicians displayed evident concern as they performed a more thorough follow-up examination. Subsequently, Dr. Rodriguez informed Margaret and Frank that an abnormal mass necessitated immediate investigation. The journey to the University of Iowa Hospital was fraught with tension. A rapid CT scan confirmed the presence of an extensive, peculiarly calcified mass deep within Margaret's ear canal, likely forming silently over many years, but only recently displacing to produce her acute symptoms, Dr. Rodriguez stressed that surgery within the next 24 hours was imperative to prevent irreversible damage to her hearing, though the mass showed no signs of malignancy. Stunned by the sudden need for surgery and the revelation of the mass' long-hidden existence, Margaret immediately suspected a connection to a severe unresolved illness she endured 25 years earlier. Dr. Rodriguez acknowledged the potential historical link might explain its formation, but emphasized that removing the mass immediately took absolute precedence over unraveling that older medical mystery. Margaret and her team grafted into the miniature cells of the tumor, and Frank moved through the hospital admission procedures in a stunned fog, grappling with overwhelming paperwork amidst the sterile, urgent atmosphere. Frank promptly called their grown children, Sarah and Michael, both of whom immediately resolved to travel to the hospital, despite Margaret's hesitation about interrupting their responsibilities. They arrived that evening, filling the hospital room with a sense of quiet dread, as they discussed necessary arrangements in low voices. Beneath the practical talk, unspoken fear resonated. Watching her gathered family, Margaret was overcome with profound gratitude. Before they departed, for there is not room for a nearby hotel, Margaret spent a restless night, sleep evading her as fragmented memories of her baffling illness from decades past surfaced relentlessly. Early the next morning brought the necessary preoperative routines, followed by an anxious journey to the operating suite. Before the anesthesia took hold, she confided her fear to Dr. Rodriguez, the belief that the mass originated from that long-ago sickness, and received soothing words of comfort. In the waiting area, Frank paced incessantly while Sarah tracked the passing minutes, and Michael distractedly attempted work. When the surgery exceeded its projected time frame significantly, the family's apprehension surged. Even Sarah's medical training offered little solace, as Frank voiced a chilling reflection. Margaret had never truly regained her former energy after that mysterious illness 25 years ago, leaving him to privately question if it had permanently altered her core vitality. Meanwhile, within the operating theater, Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Chen confronted an unforeseen complexity. Under magnification, the calcified mass revealed intricate, organized formations that resembled minute chambers and passages. Its deep integration with Margaret's nerves and surrounding blood vessels strongly indicated it wasn't a simple foreign object or typical growth, but potentially biological tissue that belonged to her. This baffling discovery, unlike anything documented in medical literature, demanded such delicate and precise removal that it pushed the procedure an hour beyond its anticipated conclusion. Following the surgery, Sarah absorbed her father's observation about Margaret's prolonged fatigue and her gradual abandonment of singing over the years. Subtle signs overlooked for decades, Dr. Rodriguez entered the tense waiting room. She confirmed the surgery's success and Margaret's restored hearing, but her expression turned hesitant before delivering the startling truth. The calcified structure was embryonic tissue, remnants of an ectopic pregnancy. Margaret had unknowingly carried for 25 years. Sarah grasped the medical implications instantly, while Frank and Michael struggled to comprehend the existence of a third child, a sibling lost before they ever knew them. Frank's thoughts returned to Margaret's inexplicable bouts of melancholy over the years, realizing she had physically harbored the calcified traces of that profoundly disrupted pregnancy. Awakening in the recovery room, Margaret sensed an extraordinary clarity, as if a dirty window obscuring her perception had suddenly been wiped clean. Yet this physical brightness was dimmed by the shadowed, troubled expressions of her gathered family, preparing her for difficult news. Dr. Rodriguez then provided the gentle explanation. The mass consisted of calcified fetal tissue from an ectopic pregnancy long in the past. Margaret made the connection immediately. The severe flu, In 1998 was her body's desperate struggle with the displaced pregnancy. Initial shock yielded to waves of grief, followed by an unexpected wellspring of tenderness. "I carried our baby," Margaret whispered to Frank, transforming her perception of the calcification from a bodily failure into a form of enduring, albeit accidental, protection. Sarah confessed guilt over not recognizing the illness years ago, but Margaret absolved her completely. No one possessed the knowledge to identify such a rare outcome. Michael, seeking to reconcile this new reality, haltingly asked, "So, we had a sibling?" Margaret affirmed, "You did," linking this profound loss to the lifelong nameless sense of incompleteness that had sometimes settled upon her. Before they could fully absorb this redefinition of their history, Dr. Rodriguez offered a final, baffling note. The precise reason for the tissue's destabilization and painful displacement after a quarter-century of dormancy remained medically inexplicable, a disruption whose uncanny timing felt quietly momentous to everyone in the room. Margaret instantly grasped the unspoken significance behind Dr. Rodriguez's words. The mass hadn't shifted randomly. Her body had held their child steadfastly through every family milestone: Sarah's tumultuous adolescence and graduation, Michael's joyful marriage, and the births of each cherished grandchild. Only now, as both children stood firmly independent, did her physical self release its long-guarded secret. Though Frank offered gentle resistance and Dr. Rodriguez cautioned that the tissue retained only a clinical mineralized form, Margaret asserted her unwavering right to see her child with quiet authority. "I unknowingly carried this child for 25 years," she stated, her teacher's resolve filling the room. "The least I am owed is to finally look upon them." The doctor, moved by her conviction, reluctantly agreed to arrange a viewing for the following day. That evening, the family gathered in a profound closeness born of shared revelation. Navigating their suddenly expanded history, Margaret insisted on sharing an age-appropriate truth with her grandchildren. "Family remains family," she explained softly, "even if we don't know about them for a while." Frank voiced his dawning realization, decades of her unexplained sadness, her lingering sense that someone was absent from their photographs. Margaret quietly confessed recurring dreams of a third child, a little girl possessing Frank's eyes. "It wasn't wishful thinking," Sarah whispered, tears forming. "It was intuition." The next morning, Margaret awoke, physically renewed, but remembering, emotionally prepared for the impending meeting. Dr. Rodriguez arrived, accompanied by pathologist Dr. Sarah Williams, who carefully reiterated that the tissue would resemble a calcified mass, not recognizable human remains. She presented a walnut-sized fragment, its surface hard and stone-like, etched under magnification with intricate microscopic chambers. Margaret saw only her child. Tears of profound recognition, devoid of horror, flowed freely as she whispered, "Hello, sweetheart. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you." Disregarding warnings about the fragment's fragility, she gathered it into her hands with infinite tenderness, cradling it gently. Her fingertips traced its contours as if soothing a newborn, her voice a murmur. "You were always with me. When I sensed that missing piece, you were telling me you were there." Sarah placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. Her voice thickened with an imminent confession. "Mom, there's something I needed to tell you yesterday." Margaret looked up, her gaze serene yet questioning, the calcified remains still held with reverence in her hands, the physical manifestation that had finally made her family feel whole after a quarter-century of silent absence. The weight of Sarah's unvoiced words settled heavily in the quiet room. Sarah's unspoken confession finally filled the room. 3 months earlier, recognizing Margaret's ear symptoms as potentially serious, she had deliberately advised against seeking medical help. Dismissing it as normal aging, She aimed to shield the family from worry. Frank reacted with bewildered hurt, while Michael's anger flared instantly. Sarah, crumbling beneath the weight of her guilt, desperately defended her judgment as a nurse, even as her composure fractured. Margaret, immediately silenced the rising argument. Still cradling the calcified remains, she addressed Sarah directly, her voice firm. "What you did was wrong, Sarah. You made decisions about my body that were never yours to make." She let the gravity of that statement hang in the air before softening. Acknowledging the intent, she added, "But you acted out of love, not malice." She then turned to Frank and Michael, her gaze unwavering. "This one mistake does not erase a lifetime of Sarah's devotion to this family," she insisted, demanding their perspective. Pathologist Dr. Williams intervened at this critical juncture, offering a startling medical perspective. She noted that Sarah's delay in encouraging medical attention had inadvertently proved fortunate. Earlier testing might have completely missed the mass before it shifted position and became symptomatic. Margaret seized upon this observation with profound clarity. "See? Even Sarah's mistake became part of God's greater plan," she stated, conviction ringing in her restored voice. "Without that delay, we might never have known about our child." This unexpected grace offered a path towards reconciliation. Dr. Rodriguez then shared a final piece of the medical puzzle. Pathology analysis confirmed the pregnancy loss occurred precisely at 8 weeks gestation, exactly the time Margaret suffered her devastating unexplained flu a quarter-century prior. "Those terrible symptoms weren't an ordinary illness," Dr. Rodriguez explained gently. "They were your body's desperate struggle to sustain the ectopic pregnancy." Dr. Williams added a quiet, profound assurance. "And afterwards, your body kept this child safely preserved for 25 years. As the medical team prepared to depart with the remains for final analysis, Margaret made a sudden, resolute announcement. They would hold a memorial service for the child, whom she named Hope. For 25 years, this baby was part of our family, unacknowledged, but present," Margaret declared, her voice thick with emotion. "They deserve to be recognized." When Frank gently questioned holding a service after so much time, Margaret was immovable. The name Hope wasn't arbitrary. It represented the unexpected, enduring gift their child had ultimately given them. Tangible proof that love persists in ways beyond immediate understanding, preserved even in stone. As Margaret prepared to leave the hospital, the Thompsons embraced their transformed understanding. They had always been a family of 5. Hope Thompson had been their silent witness for a quarter-century. Present, through every family triumph, Sarah's graduation into nursing, Michael's joyful wedding day, the births of each grandchild. Though planning a memorial for this long-unknown child lay ahead, Margaret felt an unexpected sense of wholeness settle over her. They hadn't gained a new member. They had finally acknowledged one who had always been present. 6 months later, on a warm Iowa evening, golden light bathed the Thompson backyard. Fireflies winked like tiny lanterns while grandchildren laughed, chasing their flickering trails. Frank played catch with his grandsons nearby. At the garden's edge, white roses climbed a wooden trellis beside a simple stone. Marker engraved Hope Thompson, always with us, always loved 1998823. It marked a sanctuary where beauty replaced sorrow. When 8-year-old Grace tugged Margaret's hand, asking, "Grandma, tell us about Hope again?" Margaret smiled, smoothing the child's hair. "She was our quiet guardian angel all those years," she explained gently. "Even when we didn't know her name, she was helping to keep us safe." Sarah approached with a pitcher of lemonade. The lingering guilt over delaying her mother's diagnosis had softened through months of careful reconciliation. Nearby, Michael remembered childhood dinners shadowed by a feeling of absence at the table, a mystery now understood. Frank recalled Margaret instinctively leaving space in family photos, an unvoiced intuition that someone was missing. Their story had touched hearts beyond Cedar Falls. Pastor Wilson delivered sermons about love that defies human understanding, while a documentary filmmaker approached them wishing to share Hope's extraordinary medical mystery. Though initially hesitant, Margaret now saw purpose in it. Hope's story shows us blessings often come cloaked in sadness, she reasoned. Sharing might offer others comfort. Her family readily agreed. Hope's presence had transformed secrecy into solace. As dusk deepened, Grace whispered, "Will Hope be famous now, Grandma?" Margaret knelt, meeting her granddaughter's earnest gaze. "She's already famous here," she assured softly, touching Grace's heart. "For teaching us that love stretches wider than we ever dreamed. Some families hold their angels in here." She placed Grace's small hand over her own heart, not in their arms, walking hand in hand toward the warm glow spilling from the kitchen windows. Margaret felt profound peace envelop her. Hope's journey among them was only just beginning, a testament to unseen blessings carried unknowingly and to the quiet bonds that endure unbroken beyond understanding. The ordinary air itself felt charged with grace. That's all about our stories. Do you have any thoughts after hearing the story? Please share it in the comments below.